Welcome to another edition of Mystical Monday. Hello. This conversation will be dedicated to archetypes. Archetypes, beloveds. And as you know, I simply get to make sure that we have everything going on. The audio, the video looks so clear. Hi. And whoever is going to be here with me live, and whoever's going to join as a replay, I wanted to share some archetypal themes about our journey in life. And the archetypal conversation is incredibly inspiring. Hi, Adriana. It's incredibly inspiring because it gives us a bigger perspective of where are we going, who is coming with us, right? And what are we here to share with the world? So welcome. In the United States, right now is a big holiday. We have a 4th of July, and I have such a strong, not only local community, but also international community. But the Mystical Mondays really wanted to come through today. I know everyone is going to become barbecuing at 2 p.m. So we still have a couple of hours to infuse some mystical theme. And I really wanted to share with you about one chapter in my life where I have lived in a spiritual commune for 4 years. And I almost never talk about it. Not because I don't want to, but I simply forget. And I wanted to share that part and just to weave the archetypal conversation of what it looks like, the journey of hearing the call of our personal legend and stepping on the journey, and not only in our personal life, but as a collective evolution. Because most of us begin pursuing a hero's journey from a very masculine perspective, because we live in a culture that highlights masculine values, right? And the part of awakening is we're awakening to the feminine values, to divine feminine perspective. We're making that shift from pursuing a masculine hero's journey to actually going on an inner heroine adventure with our own inner feminine, for men and women. This is how we heal our inner masculine, by healing our inner feminine. So just a little bit of a context, and it's going to be a lot of storytelling today, and the archetypal map. And I find that this archetypal map is so important, not only for ourselves, beloveds, but if we are in service to others, if we deliver services or products, if we are guides for others. And the very first thing, if we can identify where they at on the wheel, on the archetypal wheel. Are they simply hearing the call to a new life? Or are they standing on a threshold? And it's a big risk for them to leave the old life behind, right? Where are they at? And this way, the more we understand this map, the more we can navigate our transitions to next chapter and also support others to do the same. So that is the theme of this conversation. It's so good to be with you. It's so good to be with you. I'm very, very happy to meet with you on Mystical Mondays. It's a special experience that I really love weaving and creating. So let's start with the archetypal journey. Archetypal journey gives us a higher perspective. It's almost like archetypal journey gives us an opportunity to see our life from the mountaintop, right? And the more we can see our life from the mountaintop, the less of the chances we get lost on the path. Like we can see, okay, I'm heading there. This is what this next chapter is about, right? It gives us a certain level of navigation. And the very first, it starts with the call to adventure, right? We spend, the first 20 years or so, or 25 years, because every time a new generation, they stand on the shoulders of those that came before them. So the call to adventure becomes earlier and earlier. But let's just say our generation, the call to adventure would be around, 25, right? Or maybe 20, 25, where we begin to feel the call to find our thing, right? What is that thing that we're here to find, to develop, and then offer to the world? Welcome everybody who is joining. We are talking about the archetypal journey of finding our thing in the world, becoming really, really obsessed with that thing, because in our obsession and in our passion, we develop mastery. I've never seen, yes, Diane, Call to Adventure is the very first one. Call to Adventure. And, I think about The Alchemist, right? The book Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And in that book, the call to adventure comes to the shepherd boy. And the call to adventure begins to appear in his dreams. So our unconscious, our subconscious mind begins to call us to a new kind of life, right? So it's whether in our dreams or we begin to discover the synchronicities and all these signs and omens that guide us, right? But that's the very first one, is the call to adventure. And then the next step is when we approach the threshold. And we deny the call to adventure. We don't always say yes to it right away. We pretend we don't hear it. We come up with all kind of excuses how it's not the right time. Right? You hear the call to adventure and you're like, can you call me next year, right? Next year I will be more ready, or I will have more money, or I will have more time, or I will be perfect. I will be perfect enough, right? So it's really interesting that we human beings, we don't answer the call to adventure right away. We ignore it, we pretend we don't hear it, and usually we are being guided by our higher self to some kind of a event that becomes a choice point, right? So our old life has to become sort of unbearable to continue, right? Whether it's just so boring and we cannot do that old job that still provides for us, but our soul is dying there, right? Or it's a relationship, the relationship that expired and it served its purpose. And we know that if we stay in that relationship and play the status quo, our life continues to be gray, predictable, and inauthentic. So it's some kind of an illness that comes that shake us into a realization of our mortality, right? We realize, wow, I'm young, but my body is going through this initiation, and so basically some kind of an event that pushes our butts into from out of the trap of denial and into coming into the reality that if we don't make a choice to go and answer the call to adventure, we're going to continue to live these boring, predictable, unsatisfying lives, right? So everyone who is joining right now, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are talking about the pursuit of your personal legend. Welcome whoever is joining, right? I've been always passionately obsessed with archetypes because I always wanted to understand a bigger cosmic vision of what this human journey is about. And I always loved stories and myths, and there's this universal pattern of what happens through our lifetime. And the very first is call to adventure, right? The second one is when we answer the call. That's the second step. I think Diane is taking notes. It's when we answer the call, right? When we finally say, okay, I'm going on this adventure. And I don't know what happens there. I don't know how it will happen, right? But we are being guided by some kind of a vision, right? We're being guided by a dream, by a vision. So for me, beloveds, it was my call to adventure was to come to US, right? And I remember I start receiving it in my dreams, right? In my dreams, and and like a prophetic download. When I was only 7 years old, I lived in Soviet Russia, and I told my mom, who was a single parent, worked 2 very laborious jobs, very difficult, you know, and I told her, Mom, one day I'm gonna live in America. And it was a spontaneous knowing that I just had, right? I couldn't explain it logically. It was a spontaneous knowing. But it's one thing to know it and to see it. It's another thing to walk the path, right? So we can have communication with our guides, angels, and divine beings, but they cannot walk the path for us. They are invisible. They can show us signs and synchronicities and guide us to inspiring teachers, which will be the step 3. Hi Teresa, good to see you. We're talking about pursuing our personal legend, and so this is the very interesting experience when we are being called to adventure, and then we first resist that call, we pretend we don't hear it, and we try to run away, or we hear it and we totally say, I've been waiting for this call. I've been preparing for this call. Hi, Tina, darling. So it could be different scenarios based on our personality, based on our soul, right? Some people fight the call, some people run towards it, and they've been waiting for that call for years, right? It just depends. Each of our journeys is so unique and so individual. So when we finally answered the call to pursue our personal legend, that's when the journey is about to begin, right? The journey about to begin, and there is always gonna be helpers on the path, because when we answer the call, there is this next step that's called the road of trials. The road of trials is waiting for us, right? And it's beautiful because it helps us unlock an archetype of an inner warrior, right? So when we answer the call of our personal legend, we're still quite naive, right? We're still quite in this, you know, we're only tapping into a very small fraction of where this call to adventure will take us. We're full of hope, we're full of daring, and we're also naive in the beginning of the path, right? So the road of trials comes to us to strengthen our will, our ability to persevere, our ability to become very resilient on the path. You know, it's hello, dear Ronald. Hi. You know, it reminds me, beloveds, when I was in Peru last year and this year, we went on this incredible mystical hike that is called Inca Trail. And it's basically a full day hike. It's like a 2-day experience, but you hike full day from 9 a.m. until around 5 p.m. This very mystical trail that was only reserved for citizens of Machu Picchu, right? So the citizens of Machu Picchu were priests, were kings, were royalty, people who were really it was like a university, it was a future university, future space for raising the leaders of that country. So in order to walk that path, you have to be in a good, you get to be in a good physical shape. I mean, if you don't, you're really gonna feel it, right? So you get to be prepared in order to go to that trail. So when I was guiding my group to the Inca Trail, we were preparing for 6 months, right? And I remember making posts on my group, make sure you do squats and lunges and your cardio, right? Because when you are in high altitude and if you don't know the breath work or how to regulate your body, right, it's going to be a challenge. So you often think about that when we get this archetypal call to adventure. There are a certain level of training that takes place, and a lot of patience, because when we answered the call, we stepped on our adventure, we're going through the first round of the road of trials. we do not fully see where the road is taking us, right? So we may get a glimpse of our unique personal legend, but it doesn't fully reveal itself right away. And I think there is a grace of spirit, right? Because if it reveals to us all the way, the chances are that we will be absolutely terrified of the bigness of our life assignment, right? Because our consciousness expands gradually, we can only expand, to the realization of our full potential gradually. Otherwise, it will overwhelm us. The beauty of Great Spirit's plan for our life is so immense that it gets revealed to us in layers, right? In layers. So that's the power of that. So we go on this journey, right? And we're being trained in our skills and our capacities, in our resilience, and everything is preparing us for this archetypal process that is called meeting your mentor. So this is the fourth step. And I see these steps intuitively. So there are some archetypal schools. Hello, Anna Maria, darling. Good to be with you. There are some archetypal schools that have them very defined. And I am describing, the intuitive steps that I see, that I map from my own experience, right? It's really, really powerful, beloveds. But everything in our journey is linked. And each chapter gives birth to the next chapter. So there is this beautiful interconnection, right? So the very powerful moment where we are standing on the threshold and we're meeting a mentor. So this tells me, as a mentor and as somebody who guides other mentors and coaches, this is an archetypal assignment, right? That we come as souls, we come to learn, and we come to teach. And at times we get really comfortable in one role versus another. So maybe we're really comfortable in the role of a teacher, and we stop learning, right? We stop expanding our consciousness. We stop taking on new perspectives, right? And then we create imbalance. Or another way, we're really loving the learning. We're just loving it so much we can't get enough, and we don't believe in our capacity as a teacher, right? Or we don't do the work of actually refining that archetype, right? And stepping into that role of facilitation. But the joy and the fulfillment is really seeing that we're here to fulfill both roles, to learn and to pass on what we learn to others in our unique way, right? In our unique way. We can, hi Natalie, so good to see you. Yes, it's our archetypal assignment. So think about your very first mentor. Think about your very first mentor. And when I think about my very first mentor, it was, it wasn't an official role, like I'm your mentor, I'm a teacher. It was his being around him. I was being mentored into particular qualities of my being, right? It was so powerful. I'm going to tell you about my very first mentor. Was this man. His name was Alexander Georgievich. So he was a Russian man. That's when I used to live in Russia. And I was 22 years old. 22 or 21? I was 21 years old. I just came out of a spiritual commune. This is a story that I almost never share, simply because I forget, loves. But today I was like, I'm going to tell you a story how I spent 3 years in spiritual commune, right? So I just came out of the spiritual commune where I lived for 3 years in Ukraine. It was a Christian college. I was a devoted Christian for 10 years. Can you believe it? From the age 12 to the age 22. And some of my formative years of my life, from the age of 17 to 20, I spent living closed off from a regular society in a spiritual commune where there was a lot of set of rules, right, that we had to abide. And for example, you know, women were not permitted to beautify themselves. We were encouraged not to distract our spiritual brothers with our beauty. So to be as plain as you can be, right? I remember I've never, like, during those 3 years in the commune, I've never tweezed my eyebrows. And on the year 1, I had these bushy eyebrows. These bushy eyebrows, you know, and you don't dye your hair. You basically don't do anything to beautify yourself. You're in a spiritual commune. I did shave my legs. I you know, that was like, nobody would check your legs, right? But you wear long ankle skirts. You wear basically a clothing that doesn't reveal your sexiness. And we would, you know, the way you express your devotions, just imagine like Baptist Christian spiritual commune that was preparing new religious leaders, and the majority was men. So I would say 70% of that commune were men and 30% are women. And so just imagine, be as plain as you can be. But I think of those years with great tenderness in my heart, because that environment, you know, gave me community that I didn't have in my family. You know, I grew up in a family with alcoholism, with instability, with chaos and addiction. So I cannot really even count family dinners. We had a family dinner maybe twice a year, once on anybody's birthday and once on the New Year's Eve. So there was no sense of community in my environment, no sense of belonging. And I was a very spiritual child, very mystical one that craved, just give me some kind of a truth about the universe and about spirituality. And when Soviet Union collapsed and the gates of Soviet Union opened, all these American missionaries came to Russia, bringing what kind of spirituality? Christianity, right? So the Christian missionaries had the funds. They were sponsored by their home churches, and they came in and they began to support these underground churches of Russia, who were incredibly courageous and brave, because during the Soviet Union, no spiritual, like external spiritual life was not allowed. So you had to be underground. You had to meet in secret, to have your prayer group. So really powerful, right? So I was drawn to this Baptist church and the Baptist movement because I felt the purity of their intention, and I felt their devotion to their version of God, right? And as a teenager, you're so impressionable. You find the community, you find the sense of belonging, you're being seen, right? And you embrace that direction with your full heart. I was deeply devoted to that path. And when I had an opportunity to enter to that spiritual commune, I was so happy. And 3 years, we really had a big community and a big life. But you know, when I look back at that, it was a very sheltered experience, right? It was a very sheltered experience, and I had an incredible time. But when I left the college and I returned back to my hometown, so just imagine this young girl straight from the spiritual commune. I didn't know the world. I had no street smarts, and I needed to find a job to provide for myself. So I went to like a job recruiter, and they said, well, what are your skills? What can you do? And I said, I'm really good with people. And I can, you know, I can learn any skill really fast. Bobby says, I highly rolled, holy rolled. You did too? Oh, wow. Yeah. So I'm getting this interview for this big factory, and the president of that factory was looking for an administrative assistant. And I walk in, and I don't know his background. It's later in the story that I realize he spent 30 years in the military as one of the high rank, what are they called, officials, right? Like the general level. So you're meeting somebody with this very stoic, disciplined background, and who is looking for personal assistant. And I walk into his office, and we have a conversation, and there's the synergy. You know, there is a sense of ease and familiarity. Only later at life I've learned to describe it. You know, you're meeting somebody from your soul group. There is a sense of ease and familiarity, and a sense of just natural connection, right? It's just there. You don't have to try so hard. It's just there. And he said, okay, I'd love to hire you. When can you start? The earliest you can start. And I'm 21-year-old, and I said, you know, I can start in 2 weeks because I already have this commitment to this summer camp. When I was a leader in the summer camp for kids. So I'm negotiating my terms right away, and he hires me, and I start working for him as his assistant. And loves, this was such a training for everything I'm doing right now. So the reason I wanted to share this lesson is because each chapter, when I was going through each chapter, I didn't see the connection. I didn't see how they connect, like how my spiritual commune connects to me working for this former military general. Then, you know, I go to another country, then I go to another country, and what I'm experiencing, I'm collecting a particular set of tools and skills and experiences that all being weaved together to prepare me to be ready for that assignment, a life assignment, right? So I'm seeing this archetypally, and when I worked for that director, my very first mentor, he was like a father figure that I've never had. You know, I've never had a father role model to whom I could look up and admire, who had a very strong protector, a very strong leader. You know, my father has been a very deeply traumatized man who had a horrible accident when I was only 5 months in my mother's womb. And my father couldn't even be at my birth because he was in jail by being in an accident and hitting 2 people crossing the street, and one died on the spot. So my father, you know, when I grew up watching my father living in denial, shame, and deep trauma that he didn't have any support to move through. You know, in the Soviet Union, the tragedy of living in the country under totalitarianism, their spiritual life was forbidden and stripped away, but nothing was given to people except the Communist Party. So you didn't have the books, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have therapy, right? You had the regime and the Communist Party, and people who did some kind of people who served the jail time were treated as outcasts of the society. Hi, Yvonne, good to see you, darling. Yes, good to see you, my ally. So I never had a role model. And when I met my very first mentor, this man with so much power and confidence and certainty and leadership, who took me under his wing and really treated me as his daughter, right? He would take me to all of the events to represent his company. And it was a very pure connection. You know, it was a very pure connection that he saw. He was the first male figure in my life who saw my potential and who reminded me that there is something for me, something bigger, right? And when I look at it from the archetypal lens, that's why I ask you, think about your very first mentor, the person in your life who showed up on your path when you were least certain about your journey, right? But those people were strategically placed on our path to give us a confidence boost, you know, to see us deeper, right? And we have an opportunity to pay back, right? To pay it forward. That's the expression. We have an opportunity to pay it forward, to mentor others, and to show up, and to really trust when Spirit is asking us, show up here, you know, give your support here, because what we're doing, we're paying forward and we're showing up for each other. And I always celebrate the opportunity of turning on the camera and having a conversation and really feeling your energy, like feeling each person who is watching with me, right? And using this vehicle of a video to have this conversation with you and to share this time. To me, this is such an incredible gift of technology that we can use for good, right? Anna says, oh wow, I can relate. I experienced it with my German teacher 20 years ago. He directly picked up my talent. I love this. I love this. So paying forward and showing up for each other. Yes, Anna. So powerful. So powerful. So that's exactly what happened. You know, I was right out of the spiritual commune with very little life skills, with very little maturity. I was naive and pure and full of faith and possibilities. So the next stage to maturation of my soul was to meet that mentor who took me into the matrix, you know, like I went from a spiritual bubble back into the matrix in a way, and who introduced me how the world works, how the world of business runs, right? And what are the qualities that I needed. Like I remember I was preparing a document for him, and I brought a document for him to sign. As a secretary, that's what you do, right? You prepare documents, you bring it to the president of the company, and they sign it in those times. And we had to type everything and then print it. And I remember bringing a document to him and sitting on my chair waiting for him to go through it. And he pushes a document away and looks me straight in the eye and says, Katerina, you want me to put my name on this document? Find what is missing here. He gives it away to me. And what was missing, you know what was missing? A comma was missing. One comma. And it was such a powerful lesson for me in precision and really showing up so, you know, with so much devotion that, you know, I was very committed to not make that mistake again and to really make him proud, right? So a good mentor, a real mentor will not be afraid to call you on your sloppiness. And we need somebody like that, right? We need somebody in our life who can just say, you know, you're not really showing up here. I don't see your full potential self showing up here, right? I see you can do better. And I see you deeply and I know you can. So it was really, really powerful experience for me. And then, so we have, and now I'd like to change the direction of this storytelling and take us into the collective perspective. So since we have been in a male centered, in a male value centered collective paradigm for the last 3, 4, 5,000 years, what has been glorified in all the myths, all the stories, and all the books are the male hero journey, right? The male hero who leaves the village and who goes on adventure and who slays dragons and demons, who finds the treasure and awakens the warrior within and comes back with success and victory, comes back to the village, right? So most of us, we are so impacted by that storyline that we begin our life by chasing the external victory and external success and achievement, right? And a sense of accomplishment. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it eventually leads us to a wall in life, right? Where we realize we climbed the mountain of our dreams and we fulfill our biggest ambition, our biggest goal. and we realize, oh my God, I feel so empty, right? I feel so empty. I don't feel fulfilled. That's the moment where we begin to crave awakening. We begin to crave an inner journey. Once we complete the external journey, we satisfy our desires and we chase things, right? Then eventually we hit the wall. And that's the moment where, okay, that's the moment of our heroine's journey, where we begin to take our awareness from the external into internal, right? And to me, that journey is so exciting. It's a very different set of rules. We meet very different mentors and guides. We have very different road of trials, right? It's like the script is being completely flipped in the heroine's journey. And in this journey, usually I've noticed men usually experience that in their midlife crisis, where they begin to awaken to their hearts, into their inner feminine, into their intuition. And they seek out female mentors. After they sit in the brotherhood circles and do the brotherhood work, maybe before, maybe after, but it's usually, you know, when they begin to search for their inner feminine or their connection to their heart, they're drawn to female teachers, right? To get that, because women from the very, very beginning of times, women were the keepers of spiritual wisdom in communities. Women were the oracles. Women were the spiritual tradition and the healers and the midwives and shamans, right? So it's very organic desire, and there is a certain healing happens between the feminine and the masculine when the masculine lays down the ego and begins to seek a female guidance, right? And from the female perspective, when a female stop being defensive against the masculine and begin to honor the masculine journey, right? And we stop trying to turn men into women. We start really respecting their journey and their path and their transformation. Their awakening is quite different than ours, right? I have found that masculine journey of awakening, it is a series of steps, right? There's a series of leaps and steps. And the female journey awakening is very spiral, is very cyclic, right? And once we integrate all parts of our being, we realize we have both. Stacy, Ray, Nancy, hi darling, so good to see you ladies. Yeah, love this, Stacy. Yeah, it's such a, that's how we heal the relationship between the masculine and the feminine. So the masculine begins to honor the feminine, seek its guidance, and the feminine begins to hold space for the masculine and stop pressuring them to awaken on our time, right? Like, come on, you've been here for a year. And it takes the patience, right? And patience and compassion and understanding that their journey is so unique and is beautiful. But we each have the inner feminine. We each have that inner goddess that is waiting to bloom from our hearts. So when we begin the inner journey of heroine's journey, what is happening, beloveds, it's so fascinating because we begin to dive into our deepest shadows, right? So whether you're a man or a woman, when you begin your heroine's journey, you begin to do some of your deepest shadow work. So it can feel like a chapter where you crave solitude. You become a sort of a hermit, right? How many of you remember that chapter? You just withdraw from the world and you crave quiet and stillness, and you become so sensitive to the external input. And so you retrieve into your inner world to create that ripe environment to discover all these parts of yourself that you have forgotten that you have. Your primal self, your sensual self, your erotic self, your wounded self, your inner child, your inner teenager. That's a lot of characters for us to discover, and that's why it's a very solitary chapter, you know. And then you begin to activate and you're basically descending. You're going in the process of descent. You're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the depth of your unconscious, your feminine unconscious, right? And what you're doing, you're getting more and more comfortable with your feminine range, right? You like, and for men, it looks like they're learning how to feel again. They're learning how to be safe with their emotions. They're learning to become, men who know how to feel. And as women, that's what we want the most. We want the masculine man who is in touch with his feelings, right? And that's what the male journey is. They're learning to feel. They're learning like, oh my gosh, what happens if I feel the desire, if I feel this longing, if I feel this compassion and empathy? And for women, we're learning to reclaim our anger. We're learning to reclaim our erotic desire. We're learning to see ourselves as sexy beings again, right? And so, for me, that was quite a journey. Being in the commune and having all these religious beliefs about sexuality and what is right and what is wrong, feeling really blocked in my sexuality. I remember that chapter I went on, the most rebellious chapter of my life, where I pushed any societal boundaries, cages, limits that told me I should behave this sexually, or this is what ladies do, right? And it was so nauseating to me. I wanted to rebel against all of that. And, I put myself in these environments where I really could liberate my erotic self. And I'm writing about that in my book. One day, the whole memoir will tell you the full story. Otherwise, I would need 5 hours. But I feel like this is very powerful. It's your inner warrior takes you to meet your primal self, your erotic self. Because before we can open up our creative self, we gotta meet the rawness of our sexuality, right? The rawness of a sexual desire and learning to cultivate that power. That's all descent into the feminine. And then we are learning how to heal the sisterhood wounds, like the relationship with other females in our life. Again, on both sides, right? The healing mother wound, healing siblings wound, healing the collective wound with the feminine. So we are learning to sit with the feelings of jealousy that come up. When we don't have the wound, the sisterhood wound healed, we may get triggered by another woman's prosperity or success or her bold expression. And at first, we don't want to admit that we're triggered or we're jealous, right? We're just going to deny it, pretend it's not there. We're just going to project onto her. But then, since the desire of healing of that wound is so deep, we begin to realize the gift of the trigger. We begin to realize, oh, the trigger is showing me where I am not taking ownership of that wound, of the sisterhood wound, right? So it's a very powerful process, because here you begin to crave women's circles, goddess circles, right? Shamanic plant medicines, and you're being guided by your heart to step into that world and to heal the wound with the feminine, the wound with the mother. This could be a lengthy journey, a really lengthy journey, but the rewards and the fruits of that journey will be worth it. So this is the chapter where we attend the most amount of live events, right? Where we're like, I need to be on that workshop. I need to be at that moon gathering. I need to be at that retreat. Why? Because we receive the codes of the healed, empowered feminine through the teachers and the circles of the kindred souls that we resonate. And that accelerates the healing. That gives us a new healthy blueprint. I remember the very first time I saw an empowered feminine leading together, right? Leading together without competition from the place of innocence. And the very first time I saw the blueprint of that, it shifted me. It really shifted me. And I said, this is what I desire. I desire to be around healed feminine who are standing in devotion and power, so I can receive the codes through their energy body that would accelerate my remembrance and my healing process. Okay, are you still with me? How long did we go? Who cares, right? We're almost 40 minutes. Let's keep going. Because a very powerful chapter, the next archetypal leap is meeting the goddess. Meeting the goddess. Whoa! And we're meeting the goddess first through, well, each of us has its own unique experience, right? I am simply weaving broad strokes of archetypally, but we're meeting the goddess first by meeting her body. And her body is planet Earth. So we begin to be drawn to all things nature. And our idea of fun becomes sitting by a tree, putting our feet in the sand or in the earth and grounding, right? Yeah, that's our idea of fun. With less external stimulation, more harmonizing with Mother Earth, and we begin to awaken the remembrance that we are walking on the body of the goddess, right? So we begin to harmonize our vibration by being in nature more and more and more. This is how we harmonize our frequency. People say, how do you raise your vibration? Well, you actually harmonize your vibration. You bring it into harmony by resonance, by coming into attunement to the most harmonious vibration, which is the Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of the earth, right? Because we live in such a fast culture. If we are in the Western world, beloveds, we live in artificial speed. This is not a normal speed of living. And this is another reason why I love going to countries such as Peru, right? Or, any other countries that South America has that for me. Any kind of country that has a very different rhythm and a very different pulse that give us a taste of what life could be, right? And in the West, we have an artificial speed. This is not a sustainable speed that brings us to harmony. The pace of life here is set in a way that creates this background on anxiety that says, like, I never have enough time. I am always behind. I'm behind on my goals. I'm behind on my connections. I'm behind on all of these things, right? That's the story. That's the background story of the Western mind. I'm not enough. I am behind, right? I'm running out of time. So that's the collective story that we feel because of the artificial pace of life. So in the chapter where we're right about to meet the goddess, we are learning to make a connection with planet Earth again. And we're learning to feel her rhythm and her energy and her rhythm and her pace, right? And that begins the deeper healing. It begins the awakening of the heart. It's when we're learning to be at peace in the body, at peace on this planet. We're learning to accept that we are here for a reason. A lot of time in the previous chapter where we are so drawn to spiritual things, we kind of want to check out of the planet. We don't want to be here. Especially in the hero's journey, most of us don't want to be here. We want to be in some kind of ideal or fantasy or another reality, another planet. But when we go through true awakening of the heart, something is being reborn in us when we realize that we are here and this life is beautiful and is magical and we are meant to be here, we belong here, and all it takes is a change of perception. All it takes is opening our eyes again and learning to fall in love with our life exactly as it is. we have this a breakthrough. It's like this breakthrough of consciousness where we realize in order for us to create a life full of joy and meaning, we have to surrender. We get to surrender the chasing of some future reality, and we get to enter this moment fully and with innocence and with absolute trust. And until that acceptance happens, we keep chasing the ghost. We keep chasing the ghost, right? So we're entering the fullness of our life. Imperfect, messy at times, filled with questions, filled with uncertainty, but also filled with magic and filled with hugs and people who see us and love us, and filled with beautiful books that give us just enough information and wonderful videos that we can watch to uplift our spirits, and sunshine and these 4 seasons and summer and fresh fruit. And we begin to fall in love with ordinary life. And our heart begins to breathe the magic of that. And our heart intelligence comes alive. And we begin to radiate more and more and more our inner beauty. It's a gradual process of bringing our inner beauty out, right? It's a process. It's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. I wish we could take a pill for that, right? But there is no pill. There is a process of polishing your soul with so much patience and intention that your inner beauty of your soul begins to radiate more and more and more and more, and it happens organically. The light of your soul begins to beam and beam and beam, and first it's seen in your eyes. People begin to notice something different about you. Then it begins to felt in your presence. Then it begins to be felt in your vibration. Right? So it's so powerful. We begin to see these stages of refinement and of soul polishing. And what I found, beloveds, when we accept, appreciate, and allow each phase of our life to be exactly what it is, and we actually learn to really celebrate each phase, because each phase of our life has something unanswered. Isn't it so? In the previous chapter, you got the fulfillment of one of your biggest dreams, but you're entering a new chapter and there is something unanswered, something that you still desire, something that you still intend. This is the process of life. Tony Tegarden, my neighbor. So good to see you. So good to see you, neighbor. Yeah. So the more we come with this acceptance, that's a maturity of our consciousness, right, Tony? That there's going to be something unanswered in each phase of our life. And it's the discovery and anticipation and the not knowing how that prayer of yours will be answered is what creates the whole fun of this journey. I remember thinking in my naivete that I will arrive at the point in my life where everything will be answered, everything will be solved. And I'm realizing that is a complete illusion, right? And what happens is you get to enter the moment that Richard Rudd teaches us. It's the gap, it's the moment of bliss, moment of serenity, where you simply, like today, you enter the moment and you say, you know what can I luxuriate in? Like really savor the sweetness of this chapter. Like everything that I have right now, I used to pray for, I used to dream for, I used to ask for, and I am living in the realization of my dreams. So you even though you always have bigger desires and bigger visions and bigger plans, but really taking the time to enter into the fullness of your life as it is right now. And what it does to our energy body, it expands our radiance, it expands our magnetism, right? And people say you're so magnetic, right? And every time we raise our vibration, we actually build our toroidal field, right? This energy, this energetic donut that is around us. We build it and build it and build it. And this is why eventually you think about something and it comes into your existence, because your energy body is built with so much gratitude, joy, peace, devotion, these high vibrational frequencies, and you don't have any resistance in your field. You don't have complaining. You don't have, looking down on your current reality. You live in appreciation, and that's what actually creates a very powerful magnetic frequency that draws everything to you. So we're talking about archetypal journey, darlings. The whole archetypal journey where we are going, and we all begin with the pursuit of hero's journey, which is very external. We're reaching for success and status and a certain security. And then we are going through an ego dissolution process or midlife crisis or spiritual awakening, where we're being called to take a heroine's journey. We're going internal to meet our shadow self, right? And to meet the richness of our emotional world, and we learn how to feel again. And our sense of success and what is important radically transforms. And we stop measuring ourselves by the size of our bank accounts, or by the number of followers, or by the number of how many people buy our products and programs. We really shed that, and we begin to measure our success or our prosperity in the sense of contribution, how deeply fulfilled we are each day. We begin to see that our sense of vitality and our health is a true prosperity. And we begin to see, you know what, when I serve one person, I serve the whole world, because this is a fractal universe. And I impact with my vibration 3 people, and they go impact 100. And this is how our influence grows. So it's you source your validation from within. You stop sourcing it from without. That's the jewel of the heroine's journey. Whether you're in male body or the female body, the spiritual awakening is the taking of that inner journey. It's a journey back to your most authentic self, your most innocent self. And beloveds, just to wrap it up, what happens where after we meet the goddess and have that awakening of the spiritual heart, we begin to balance our inner masculine, our inner feminine. And there's a mystical process that's called the sacred union and the mystical marriage within. So you marry both sides of you. You marry your left brain and your right brain. You marry your passion and your reason, your intuition and your logic. You don't value one over another. You marry your physical life and your spiritual life. You become, you put order in your financial life, just how you have order in your fitness life. You begin to really bring all of your lives into harmonious integration. And when that happens, a new kind of consciousness begins to dawn, and it happens spontaneously. We can't really will it to happen. It's a spontaneous birth of a new kind of consciousness in you that is called the magical child or divine child. It's the archetypal blossoming of our soul, where we have a deep maturity and life experience that gives us wisdom. But we arrive to that place of innocence, where life begins to be filled with wonder and awe and magic again, right? Where we look at the world and we don't defend our heart anymore. We know that a healed heart is impossible to break. So we engage in romances with a new kind of lightness. Maybe we begin to drop projections of a soulmate or twin flame. And we begin to realize we already found our soulmate. It's our body. Our body is our soulmate, right? We already found the soulmate. So if we already found the soulmate, what's next? Love your soulmate. Take your soulmate on adventures. Take your soulmate own experiences. And when we stop seeking the external soulmate is when true love finds us, because true love is only truly possible with another human being who discovered their wholeness, right? Who discovered their divine magical child. Then it's an empowered love. That's a love not based on codependency, what you can do for me and how many burdens of mine can you take on, right? But it's a both sovereign individuals who see the magic of interdependence, who say, you know what, I'm fulfilled and complete on my own, but I love sharing my life adventure with another magical being. And that's why, you know, I'm excited to experience this with you. So that's the archetypal journey, beloveds. It's so beautiful. It's so powerful. And you know, it's so crucial for us to know, because a lot of my peers are here watching these live streams. When we guide other souls, when you can quickly identify where they at on the archetypal wheel, right? By asking questions and by listening deeply, then we can assist with more precision and with more guidance. Yeah, when two wholes come together, 1 to 1, that's 11. 11 is my favorite number, right? Oh, so good to be with you. This mystical Monday have been so rich, and I hope it was brought inspiration for you to really see that every part of your journey has provided that stepping stone for the next part, and there was absolutely no mistakes. There was absolutely no mistakes. You know, some of my low frequency patterns that sometimes my mind gets trapped in, I wonder if you can relate, is when I make a low vibrational choice, my mind will start beating the drum. How could you? How could you make that choice? How could you make that choice? Oh my gosh, Katerina, with your level of awareness, you made that choice. And it just doesn't shut up for like good 2 minutes. So my solution for that scenario is I say there is no mistake. There is no mistake. Every single experience has served me, right? And so I offer you this mantra: there is no mistake. Even some of your epic failures, what looks like an epic mess, you know, those moments where you made a total fool of yourself and you made a total mess out of your life. If you look back from the open heart, those chapters gave you the most colorful stories to share, right? They're the most colorful stories that actually create a lot of empathy with your fellow being. No mistakes, only mastery of the path. Everything happens for me. Yes, yes, yes. I love this so much. Oh my goodness. This was fantastic, beloveds. I had a lot of fun with you, and now I feel hunger. So I'm gonna go and make myself, well, I just heat up things now. You know, I heat up the things that my beautiful support chef prepares for me. I'm so grateful. So I'm gonna go and eat. I'm gonna heat them up. But this was a beautiful time to spend with you. Happy archetypal journey. Pursue your personal legend with playfulness, devotion, lightness of heart, knowing that helpers, allies, and mentors will continue to show up at each threshold, right? There's going to be new thresholds for us to stand in front of, and the new opportunities for us to take a bold creative risk, and we continue to expand, continue to find the depth of our soul, it's a spiral journey. Because once we step on the heroine's journey, our journey becomes spiral, and spiral, it takes us to a new spiral of evolution. I love you. If you feel like sharing this video, please share this video with your community. I always encourage that, and it's a true joy to be with you. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Tony. And I love you, beloveds. Until next Mystical Monday, believe in the beauty of your dreams. Your personal legend is yours to fulfill, and we keep incarnating for joy, That's why we're here. So let's remember that. And I love you very much.